going on, guys? It's Tip Tuesday, and there's a couple things I wanted to talk to you about. One was braided line, and the other one was a rod. The other day I was out fishing, and I just took like 3 baits out with me. I took a topwater whopper plopper, I took lipless crankbait, and I forget what else I took. I made a spool tech lure, and I went out fishing, and the topwater bite wasn't working. I threw the spool tech lure out there, but it was really, really windy. It didn't have a lot of sound to it, so I switched over to a lipless crankbait. I was fishing a medium, I'm sorry, not a medium, a heavy rod with braid. It had a fast tip too. And I was out there maybe for about 35 to maybe 45 minutes, and I caught 10 fish super, super quick. And when I was through catching each fish, I was so fatigued. I could feel it in my wrists, I could feel it in my arms and my shoulders. And it was just like, I'm like, man, I really chose the wrong setup for this bait. But you know, I was in a hurry. I wanted to fish braided line. I just in case I got a snag or something like that, I could bend the hooks out and get my lures back. But the tips that I want to leave for you today is that when you're fishing braided line, you want a rod that has really good bend to it, and that's called parabolic bend. You want enough backbone in it to set the hook, but you also want the rod to do a lot of the work for you. Okay, with that heavy rod, when I was fighting those fish that were like 3 to 4 pounds felt like they were 9 to 10 pounds, and it was insane because every time I set the hook, I'm like, "Ooh, I got a real good one on, real good." I mean, a 3 or 4 pounder is good, but when you're thinking you got a 9 and 10 pounder on, you know, you're kind of like, "Oh man, that, you know, I thought it was bigger than that," and you keep on casting out there. But you know, with a heavy rod and braid, because braid doesn't stretch, when you're out there fighting those fish, especially with a rod that doesn't do any of the work for you, I mean, you are getting so fatigued, and that fish feels so heavy. You can feel everything. You can feel, you know, the head shakes. You can feel his little, you know, exerts when he, you know, takes off and stuff like that. But it was just like, in my mind, I'm like, yo, this is really wearing me down, and I need to, you know, share this. So if you're ever out there selecting a rod, you want a rod long enough, you want a rod that has a good backbone to it, which means when you set the hook, the whole rod doesn't bend, but it's enough to, you know, jam that hook through that fish's mouth. But also, when you're fishing that braided line, the entire rod is pretty much doing the work for you when you're fighting that fish. Alright, I was saying something to a buddy of mine the other day, is, you know, how advanced rods are now these days. I mean, if you were to fish a heavy rod with every bait that you had, you would be so fatigued, probably within a couple hours. Due to how advanced these rods are now these days, I mean, 95 to like 98% of the fight is exerted into these rods, and they take up most of that fight, which I guess allows you to fish or helps you fish throughout the entire day without getting fatigued. So you want to pick the right rods for the right, you know, setups that you're fishing. And the setup that I had yesterday or the other day with that lipless crankbait was awful. I was just so fatigued. I'm glad I only had a certain amount of time and with the bait that I had. But the line that I normally fish is that Power Pro braided line. I don't know why I choose that line. It's just the line that I had bought back in the day, and I just always stuck with it. It's a really good line. I mean, I've never had any problems with it. But that Power Pro line, braided line, I use 65 pound or maybe 50 to 65 pound when I'm fishing, you know, like the top water or fishing submerged cover or flipping, skipping docks and stuff like that. It's a really good line. But another thing I want to leave you with is when you're choosing a rod, you want to make sure it has a good backbone. You want to make sure it has really good parabolic bend to it to help you fight those fish. And another key thing is your eye inserts. As you can see, this one right here, this is a white ice by Duckett Rods, and this insert right here is so thick. It's huge. And a lot of his inserts on all of his rods are really thick, even on the micro guides. This is his spinning rod, and you can see just how thick these eye inserts are. And having thick eye inserts is really good for one reason, especially with fishing with braid. I had fished braid on another rod. I'm not going to shout that name out, but the rod, I mean, the eyes inside it were so thin and just not as durable. And what was happening was like when I was setting that hook over and over again, the line was actually penetrating through and making cut marks in that eye. And what it was doing, it was you know, starting to fray my braided line, and on some hook sets it would snap my line. So when you're picking a rod, choose one that can set that hook and penetrate that hook through that fish's mouth, has good parabolic bend to it to help you fight that fish, and have a good tip and really good eye inserts. Well guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope I gave you some really good information about fishing braided line and choosing the right rod for your braided line. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Buddy Evans. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Bassin with Buddy. See you next time for Tip Tuesday, and don't forget, keep those lines wet.